What up? So I noticed that a lot of y'all who follow my channel are also artists, so I wanted to make a video that I thought might be helpful to some of y'all. Okay, I just wanted to share a couple of tips with how to record and also how to export and send your audio files so that your collaborations run smoothly. Okay, so let's say you're the next big thing. You're popping off on all your socials, Instagram, TikTok, Titter. So you've caught some big labels' attention, alright? Gunna reaches out to you for his next single, Pushin' P. So, Gunna obviously needs me to save him on this track. Let's see what he's got, okay? We're just gonna download the track, and then we'll get to it. Alright, so once you have the track downloaded, what you're gonna wanna do is open up your DAW and pop it into your DAW. Okay, hopefully the person who sent it to you was kind enough to put a BPM marking, so we know that this is 155 BPM. Gonna open a new audio track, and then we can get to recording. And as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be too far away from the mic, nor too close to it. You just want to find that sweet spot and stay right where you are, and project towards the mic, you know? Now when you're recording, I know it's easy to get focused and to get lost in the feeling. Sometimes you'll be moving around with the feeling, but the best thing to do is to, you know, get in the mood, get in the feeling, but try to stay in one consistent spot, still projecting towards the mic. Something that I do sometimes when I'm recording people is if I have someone that's moving around and moving away from the mic too much, I just put a little bit of duct tape or whatever on the ground there and just tell them don't move from this spot. Once you got that in there, find the part that's for you. Find the part wherever your verse is or wherever it may be. Let's just say it starts around here. So what I would recommend doing is marking it. Okay, with Logic you can use the marker there, and I'm sure that other DAWs have a similar feature, but just mark it so that you know this is where you're coming in at. Then you can go ahead and create your blank audio track, make sure it's armed, and begin recording. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Okay, Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing P. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer, that's Silent P. Hit me with that lighter, smoking P. Your mom is squeezing tighter, power. Yeah, a Pink Panther on the prowl, pushing P. Packing peas with Simon Cowell, X Factor P. Fuck the past, live in the now, present P. Presently up in the house, domestic P. I don't know what else to say, I don't give a fuck, man, this is just for fun, man, I don't play with guns, man, blowing up the run, man, smoking up with nuns, man, gotta go hit the blunt, man, I don't, I don't know. Alright, so now that you've recorded everything, I would recommend going in and labeling your tracks. So I'm gonna call this my verse. And in fact, I might even call it my verse main vocal, just to be more specific. I'm going to call these the ad-libs. And I'm going to call this one additional verse ad-libs. So I'll just call these verse ad-libs to give them the same label. And then this, I'll just call this my vocal bus. And then in Logic, what you can do is select all the tracks that you want. In order to change these regions over here, just hit Shift, Option, and in, and it'll change the names for you. Just like that. Alright, so I got my Vox recorded, right? And I've gotten things organized. Now I want to send them off to my collaborator. Let's say that I've gone in here and I've done a little bit of mixing on my vocals. I like the way that they're sounding. But I'm not sure if my collaborator is going to like the way they sound. And I don't know if they're going to have their own engineer or whatever to mix my vocals in the way that they think is best for the song. You know, I could try to reach out to them again and communicate with them what they want. And that's always a good idea to do. But if I don't have the time to do that, what I can do instead is just send them a dry copy of my vocals and a wet copy of my vocals. Okay, and what that means is sending them a copy without my processing and with my processing. I'll just give you a quick way to visualize that. So this right here is a reverb. We'll just apply this reverb to all the vocals so you can really tell and see the difference for yourself. So this is a reverb effect, and you can see the mix knob right here, and you can see It's on all the way dry right now, and this is what the vocals sound like, dry, completely.
Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing P. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer, that's silent P.
Right, but as I turn the wet knob up, you'll see the effect come in.
Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing P. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer, that's silent P.
Okay, so there you go. So this terminology, dry and wet, applies to any processing, not just reverb. Right, so when you're sending something dry, you're sending it without any effects at all.
Peter Piper picked a pepper.
And when you're sending it wet, you're sending it with all your effects on.
Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing.
Okay, I hope that's clear. So I want to send them both a dry and a wet copy. I'm going to go ahead and select the tracks that I want to bounce. And then I'm going to hit, in Logic, Control E. Control E for export. And I'm going to export these files into a folder. And I'm going to go ahead and export my dry vocals first. So I'm just going to create a folder real quick called dry vocals. I'm going to select trim silence at file end. What that's going to do is export my files from the very beginning of the project up until the end of the audio in the track. So for this one, it'll start all the way here and export all the way till where this ends right here. For the second one here, same thing, all the way from the beginning up till the end of where this track ends. I'm gonna export as a wave, generally best practice because wave can be used across PC and Mac. These other two here are specifically for Mac, so I'm not gonna do that. 24-bit is generally best practice. Anything lower than that is typically for things like MP3 and stuff, so it'll lower the quality. 32-bit float is nice if that's what your engineer is working in, but generally best to keep it in 24. So what I'm going to do now is select bypass bypass effect plugins. What this is going to do is it's going to give me my dry vocal. So basically what it'll be doing is like exporting all these tracks with all these turned off. So again, Control E for export, choose my destination up here, wave 24-bit, and I'm going to select bypass effect plugins. Generally, you don't want to include volume and pan automation because the person your collaborator who you're sending it to will want to adjust those things for themselves. So keep that turned off. Normalize, you want off. What normalize does is it raises your peak to its maximum volume, and the rest of the track there's really no reason to have normalize on in most cases, especially if you've gone in and you've done some level balancing yourself. It's going to change all of that for you, so just keep that turned off. Okay, I'm going to hit export, and then I'm going to drag those tracks back into the project to make sure everything looks and sounds right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these in and make sure everything's looking right. And so far, so good. I like that I can just pull all my tracks in and just pull them to the very beginning of the project, and they'll just drop right exactly where they start in the track. That way I don't have to try to take the region and try to figure out where it goes. So just visually speaking, everything looks good so far. Everything is neatly labeled. Again, everything is starting at the very beginning of the project and ending up where it's supposed to, lining up where it's supposed to in the grid. And if I just hit play, I can hear for myself what it sounds like.
Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing P. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer, that's silent P.
And you can hear the vocals sound dry, they sound raw, they don't have any of the processing that I put on them on there, and that's exactly what I want. And so then what I can do for my collaborator, make it easy on them, is rename the file dry. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the wet signal. Okay, I'm going to select my tracks, hit Command-Shift-E again, select the folder that I want to put them in. This time I'm going to put them in the wet folder. I'm going to make sure that bypass effects plugins is turned off because I want the effects plugins on there. And then I'm just going to hit export. Once I've done that, I'm going to drag them back into the project, drag them all the way to the front. Right at the start of the project, I'm going to create new tracks. And I'm just going to make sure everything looks visually good again. So far I like that everything's lining up the way that it should. Let's listen to it.
Peter Piper picked a pepper, he's pushing P. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer, that's silent P. Hit me with that lighter, smoking Your mom is squeezing tighter, power,
Okay, this time you can hear that the vocals have that processing that I put on there. All right, and just for comparison's sake, we'll put the dry signal right next to the wet here.
Peter Piper picked a pepper. I'ma hit Michelle Pfeiffer. Hit me with that lighter. Your mom is squeezing tighter.
Right, so I got the wet one here, the dry one here. Okay, and what I can do again is do the same thing with the wet vocals. Just go in, rename the files real quick as wet. One last thing I want to do for my collaborator is send them a reference track. So meaning I want to send them the track with the vocals that I recorded in it. And that way they can reference where the vocals are supposed to come in, where they're supposed to sound like. So in order to do that, you want to bounce the whole project. To do that, you want to hit Command B and bounce your reference. You can bounce it as a wave or you can bounce it as an MP3. It's just a reference track, so in most cases it's not going to matter whether or not you use wave or MP3. It really depends on your collaborator and what they want, but it doesn't take a whole lot of time or effort, so why not just send them both? In my personal situation, I do not have good internet access, so the file sizes that I can download, I prefer them to not be very large, so if you just send me an MP3 reference track, that works perfectly fine for me. So again, have your settings as such. If you're doing wave, just select wave, 24-bit. Sample rate, is best to just keep it at 44,100. Yeah, and just have normalize off. Same with MP3. 320 is going to be your highest quality, so I would just keep it at that. Again, have normalize off, and just go ahead and click OK and bounce. I would name it something like the track, your name, and reference, or reference track. Again, that depends on you, but just make sure that it's clear. Again, drag that into your DAW while you have it open. Make sure that everything looks and sounds good. See, I did not realize I still had that echo verb on. And if I had just sent that to Gunna right now as it was, I would have been looking stupid. So see, it's a good thing that I checked. I'm going to delete that, and then I'm going to bounce this again, make sure that echo verb is turned off. All right, now let's listen to it.
Hit me with that lighter, smoking Your mom is squeezing tight.
Now it's sounding the way I expected to. All right, and so now hopefully you can see here, I got everything neatly labeled into a folder that's easy to read. It's just Push and P, Tonic Dream, Vox. And then I got the reference track, and I have the dry and wet versions of my tracks here. All labeled, ad-libs, main vocal, etc., whatever else you may have. And if I have lyrics, it's a good idea to always send lyrics too. So if I had lyrics, I would send like a lyric text file here too. You don't have to do this, but in most cases, but what I like to do is I like to compress them into a zip folder. So I'm just gonna hit compress, and it's gonna create a little zip folder for me. And what that does, it just makes it into a smaller file size, and that way it's easy to just send across the internet to somebody. Send them that zip folder and send off your email and just let it roll. What they're then going to do is take whatever you sent them and drag it into whatever they have. So again, just make sure you have things labeled, make sure it's clear, make sure that they can drag it into the beginning of the project, drop it, and everything falls where it should. Make sure that you checked everything, make sure it all sounds good, so you're not looking like a fool.
Seems like everything goes back to the past. Should've listened to my friends, knew this shit wouldn't last.